I need a motion to approve minutes.
I'll approve.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
To approve the minutes, everyone vote yes. All right, one thing I'd like to do right now too, if somebody wants to make a motion, instead of making the new business over the plat, wait for us to discuss we can go ahead and maybe reverse those and put new business before old. Somebody will make a motion to do that. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Then we will go to new business on the preliminary plat.
Mary, do you want to do public comment just in case?
Oh, yeah. Is there any separate comment at this time on the agenda items? See, so. Adam, would you like to come up and speak on the plat?
Dave from House, no,
Okay,
discuss if that's all right with you.
yep.
Introduce yourself, Dave, please.
My name is Jane Tipton with House W, engineering project.
You're gonna have to speak up.
A little louder.
Sorry, Jane Tipton with House W, I'm the engineer on project.
Okay.
So what we've got 7 proposed new buildings, 3 plexes, and one full schoolhouse is planned to be renovated. It's 29 units for that. Expansion of the existing parking lot there. This would be phased lot 8 and the parking expansion with pension area would be developed after the police department moves. And those buildings will come down. The rest of the lots 1 through 7 it would be phase 1.
So phase 2 is just your parking lots.
Parking lot, lot 8 and the detention. And that's where the existing police station is right now.
And then the original building there. The old schoolhouse.
Oh, yep, that's planned to be renovated into.
Any question?
In your staff report on page 2 and 3, it goes over the list of the water, sanitary sewer, all of those that are listed on the actual preliminary plat. It kind of breaks it down for you if you have any questions there. She did just to reiterate, she did state that phase 1 is lot 1 through 7, track A, and they're commencing that in 2025. And then you said the phase 2, lot 8, track B would be after the police department building is down. So that's to be determined.
Yep.
So does, I guess after address this, yeah, maybe you, does, the lots 1 through 7, 2 through 7, how are the setbacks and everything on that? Everything perfectly normal and the same as it would be without a PUD, or is this?
Yep, this is to our current code since the PUD is not approved yet. And we did send the preliminary plat to our engineers to review a city code. So that's, if you look in your packet, just after the staff report pages, you'll see the email from Ben Hines from Allstate, and the letter on Allstate letterhead. So the first page is the review letter that states the few things that were needed to be addressed, and those my understanding, those have been addressed by the applicant.
I did read that.
Do you have any more packets?
I don't, the letter on letter. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody, did the Allstate,
No,
you have that, Allstate engineering?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was talking about the parking space. Well, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
What is it that we need to do?
We need to accept their plat.
The preliminary plat.
Is there? So you gonna get the zoning or anything changing there or?
Nope, it's already, they're moving forward with the existing zone, which is R3. And, so per our ordinance, they're required to submit the preliminary plat and then they'll submit a final plat once they've got construction plans and things like that kind of solidified. So the preliminary plat is required to show like contours and, that type of detail. So we just sent this to our engineers to make sure that all the details that are required of our ordinance was verified and was included in the preliminary plat. So the biggest thing on here was that the parking, per our ordinance, parking spaces should be at least 20 feet in length. And so really a variance would be required for 18 foot long parking stalls.
So there's gonna be 18.
And then they, 18 foot in length. And then item 1 was clarified by the applicant and has been updated.
Okay. So they were gonna have, what, 2 spaces per unit?
No, so that's what the next page, references. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we just tried to kind of piece it together, but we counted 95 parking stalls and what would be required to do 2 parking stalls per unit would be 100, I believe. So there are 5 parking stalls short. And so that's where the email behind that letter from Allstate. So we just wanted to get clarification on that from them. And so that email's kind of stating the engineer's thoughts on the 5 short parking stalls. He references that since it is a senior living facility, what our code is requiring is pretty substantial. So he references in that email that Kansas City for senior living, Kansas City would require 1 parking stall for every 3 units. The city of Lee Summit requires 1 per unit plus 1 per employee on the maximum shift. And the city of Blue Springs requires 1.5 per unit. So
I don't remember, is there on-street parking around here?
it's pretty minimal.
For the minimum.
I think I'm kind of feeling the same way. I feel like, as we talked last week about parking and how that's an issue, I feel like that could be a big issue there, even with seniors, like, they, friends will come over and,
Family,
yeah.
multiple family people.
One of the things that I just did some kind of research on was our existing senior housing that we have. I just kind of had to Google map it, but based on my counts, it appears that the existing senior apartments on Otway have, it looks very close to one parking stall per unit on the current senior apartments. So
How long ago were those been out?
they've been there a very long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say before there was.
But also not somewhere that we see like major parking issues or anything either.
We're talking downtown, so.
This is at the the old junior high location.
Right.
Is this all the property that we're seeing right here, or is it?
Yes.
I think we need more parking space for the place because I live on a street that there is so many cars that we can hardly see the sign.
Right. So our code would only be requiring them to add 5 more parking stalls.
Do they have room to do that?
Yes, we have room to expand the parking. We were just opting for a little bit more green space at this time, but we can definitely expand that.
I'm assuming that it's not in our current. Going on down the line. We're gonna be asking for green space. Is there gonna be any kind of green space in this, or
Yes.
could you tell us what's there, or?
We've got tract A kind of situated in the middle between lots 2 and 7, kind of the center of that courtyard. We've got everything that's not on the lines is all open green space. And then also part of the detention tract will be green space.
The way this is placed, it looks to me like that when you put it on here, it's like this here is a part of the parking. Is this part of the parking space there? It's there now?
I believe if you're looking near kind of
I'm looking at
5 and
2,
6.
yeah, 7 through 6.
Yep, so there's currently an existing playground. Look like.
So that's what you're talking about. It's the one on the south side of the building.
Correct. It's a park right now.
Right. I know where she's talking about.
And then the existing drive that's there today would be where they would add parking stalls, the 23 row of 23 parking stalls.
Yeah.
That's existing.
But
Yeah. I agree.
With the 5 more be coming out of the green space?
Yes.
What's more important? I don't know.
I don't either.
Minimal.
Just have cars on that street already that they don't park in their driveways, they're parking on the street. Go up down First Street, you'll see. Right, that's where I live, that's the reason why I know.
So then is the board recommending it get sent back for
Yes,
additional floor? Can we pencil that in, that it needs, that needs to be added, we can approve it with that being a part of it?
I can ask, Lindsay. So if they're wanting the 5 additional parking stalls to be included. So how would the board approve this agenda item when the yeah, it's just on there as the preliminary plat for this parcel.
Is that the only variation?
Hmm.
That's the only variant that we're looking at?
Well, there's also the 18-foot versus 20-foot length.
There are 2 other variances that are listed in that in the corner of the plan. The lot area requirements, the lot 1 and 8. Based on the code, it's 8,400 square feet plus 2,000 square feet for every unit over 2. So don't quite get that for lot 8 because of the detention, and then lot 1 with there being 29 units and be very large kind of lot. And then the other variance is the side yard interior setback from the existing building.
So then the setbacks aren't really what our codes are right now.
for lot
Or
one
just lot one?
only. Which is the 1912 building.
And we can move that lot line to provide the side back or side setback. It would just, the lot line would be about in the middle of the driveway. We're kind of trying to keep that as a track.
Keep which one is a tract?
That area. So if we take the side lot line on the interior of lot one and move that south, the required 10 feet, I believe maybe 13 on this one. We could meet that. It would just have part of the main driveway.
Can you show me real quick?
There's the lot line
Mhm.
on this. We can bring that down because our other lot is here and this is the tract. But we can bring that down and just provide an easement for access through there.
Mm.
But it wouldn't change the layout.
But today the driveway goes, is the driveway now go that close to the building? So it's not changing anything from what's existing there today then, in reality. Because the drive runs right along the side of that building for the old 1912 building. So it'd really just kind of be on paper because they're not gonna be able to move the road.
The easement is there for fire in between these 2 through 7. I mean,
So
Adam's a firefighter. How do we, what are fire trucks doing to get to the,
they're all fronting public streets and then
okay,
also the private street would
center there?
would be essentially a fire lane.
And so the lot area for your first variance lot area for lot 1 and lot 8. And that's based on the R3 lot area requirement?
Correct.
It does.
And actually looking at lot 8 again, lot 8 does.
Now, can we go ahead and pass that, or does that have to go to a board of variance?
Now, how does that work, Lindsay? If there's variances on the preliminary plot, does it go to BZA or after approval, or how does this work?
So we would, if there are 3 variances currently listed on the plat, those would have to be approved by BZA before this plat can be recorded with the county recorder. You could recommend approval with the condition that there is another variance. I think I heard the parking requirement. So if you would like to approve tonight with conditions, you can do so.
So you would be approving it tonight with the assumption that it would go to BZA before it's recorded.
Just real quick on the parking, we're 5 spaces short. We can add the 5 spaces. We can, personally, I think I'd rather have the green space. I go in and out of a lot of apartment complexes and the lots are never completely full. In the instance that it is completely full, it's not ideal, but you can park on the street there. Like I said, it at that point, it's not gonna matter to us either way. Just think it'd be more attractive with the green space and 5 parking spaces short, but if that's not an option, then we'll put it in. I just wanted to say that we would prefer the larger green spaces, so.
And who are you, sir? Could you?
I'm Adam Couch, sorry.
Stupid question. Senior living. What does that mean? Does that mean anything different than apartment? Well,
Yeah, that's actually our error. That's supposed to come up. It's really just gonna be the 1912. When we open it up, we're going to, our preference is 55 and older. maintenance free. It's not assisted living. It's not nursing care or anything like that. It's just maintenance free living. But what we've discussed with the city is if we don't have enough applicants or there aren't applicants for 55 and older, then we will open it up to general public at the same time. So
And if that happens, how many bedrooms are these units going to be?
The majority of the apartments are one bedroom. I looked at the,
That's the ones that are going on 2 through 7.
no, those are, that's all lot one. So there's 29 units in lot one in that
Those will
existing
be
school.
But what about the other?
Those floor plans I do not believe have been completed or finalized yet.
Do you know if you're thinking 1 or 2 bedrooms on those?
on the lots,
Yeah,
yeah, probably try to get mostly 2 bedroom, 1 and 2 bedroom. The school building itself is 1 and 2.
so then if you open it up, then you're not just gonna have senior people who maybe have 1 car, you're gonna open it up to people who will be having more company and more, possibly 2 or 3 cars in their.
Awesome. Like I said, if 5 is,
So-
if 5 is the sticking point, then it's fine. We'll have 5
And
more spaces.
we were just discussing this last week, and we were seeing a lot of where there's not enough parking in these places, and then the streets are being filled. So that's our concern.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
More discussion.
Do you have any concerns with the other variances that are listed? The 18-foot or,
As long as it's going to BZA, then I'm okay, me personally, but I don't know how everybody else feels. Just as long as those variances are gonna be addressed at some point.
I think my other question is, do we have any code about how many accessible parking spots there are? Is that what county intends?
Also, so you.
We do exceed the ADA requirements for this number of units.
I know the ADA is like bare minimums. I'm just curious, cause you know, with it being senior living and my sister's personally in a wheelchair, so. I wanna make sure that we're also taking that into account, that. You know, we're talking about seniors and. Sometimes those are bigger cars and vans with lifts and.
Mhm.
You know, we need to think about those buses coming to take people to medical appointments and. All of those type things, so.
so that would be regulated by the building code. And unless the city were to have additional requirements per our ordinance, then we don't really have the ability to approve or deny based off of that.
Because of the codes, you know, we're not. You know, they still have to follow the codes, we're not very.
Right. And so those variances that are listed are things that are varied from what our code allows.
No,
Just curiously, because I don't know what, sorry, I just don't know what like all the lines mean, but there is gonna be like a safe like sidewalk or a path for them to get from their parking all like, cause you said they're gonna be facing out, so it's like, I see they're gonna park here and have to walk.
Yeah, so there is, you can kind of see in the center, there's gonna be a network of sidewalks and they'll go up to each door. Yeah, okay.
Maybe sidewalks around the perimeter of the parcel.
I believe there are existing sidewalks. If I remember correctly.
Right, there is. Isn't there like one side of sidewalk on that side street?
I know there is on there, I think, sure.
Yeah.
There is not.
Okay, so the lot that's in front of the or behind, or what you wanna call it, next to between 2 and 7, the lot there, is that lot 1?
Between 2 and 7, that is a open space.
Okay, that open space, is that where your sidewalks are that adjoin to all the lots?
Yep, so that's kind of the central courtyard. There's a sidewalk that kind of goes around the perimeter. As well as the courtyard in the center. And then from the outer sidewalk, there will be sidewalks for each individual building. Those are not shown because the
Okay.
locations of the.
Okay.
I know that the. Parking spaces are pretty important, but. One, I heard here tonight, get the 5 more parking spots, you could get that out of your green space. It's a green space. If this is a PUD, what would we say? Would we say, what are you gonna give us if we don't? If we make this change?
Yeah,
Is
they
the
would
green
come,
space what we're
they
looking
would
for?
come to us with the argument that they are reduced by 5 parking stalls, but there's an open greens, multiple open green spaces included. So it wouldn't be, it'd be a little different than how you explained it, but they would come to us with that proposal and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To make it.
And if we don't make them do the 5, they'd still have to go to BZA, right? Get that approved with all the
True.
ones.
Is there anything in the ordinance now, say if there was a complex and there has to be so much green space?
No.
Make a motion, putting all that.
So
into it.
Lindsay, are they, would the motion be for recommendation of approval with
On the condition that a variance is approved for whatever that variance requirement is.
okay. So you could recommend it tonight with the condition that the 4 variances would be approved by BZA. If you're including the 5 parking stalls as a variance, or if you're not including that at all, then it would just be the 3. So would they need to go, like, bring it back to them with the 5 stalls added, or can they do that?
If the variances are granted, it would not have to come back to planning commission, no.
Right, but there's the variance of the 5 parking stalls, dependent on if this commission is recommending that they add those, would they need to add those and then come back to this commission, I guess is what I'm saying. If it's not considered a variance.
Oh, yes, if they do not get a variance, they would have to add those 5 parking spaces.
And come back.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what, I guess that's my question. Are the 5, them adding, the need to add 5 parking stalls, is that a condition?
How about if it is approval on the condition that either a variance is granted or the 5 parking spaces are added?
Did you guys hear that?
No.
She said you could approve it with the condition that there's a variance received from BZA for the 5 parking stalls, or that the 5 stalls are added. Or you can just say that the 5 stalls will be added, with the condition that the 5 stalls will be added. So do you guys have consensus on if you want the 5 stalls to be added, or if you want them to have the ability to go to BZA for a variance? I might have made that more confusing than it really was. I'm sorry.
You either do it as a condition that they're going to do it, or we can send it on as, variance or
Correct.
BZA to approve.
Correct.
So we can approve it based on those things happening.
Yes.
I'm for adding them to the condition.
Do you want them added? The condition or variance?
I'm confused now.
If we do it as a condition, then we're approving it on the condition you're going to add those spaces. But if we do it as a variance, we're gonna say, then if BZA says it's okay, we say it's okay.
Parking's minor for your, so it's the timing.
Is that a motion?
No, I'm asking your opinion on the,
I don't know, I don't have proper parking.
right?
I like the green space, because this is just one lot, right? Or this is just, so we don't. The city is going to own the rest of it, is that correct?
The city would only own what's north of this. Like where it says senior living at 1912, the city owns that to Dryden.
Okay.
So this is all privately owned. Everything that you can see is privately owned except for the streets.
So like, there's like a over here, because that's where.
Where the soccer fields are. Where the soccer fields are is owned by the city and only that.
Across from the post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe to make a motion, whichever way you want.
I'd rather see the green space, but I think the motion is going to be. To add the,
To make it a condition. Somebody wanna make that motion?
Yeah, I think a motion to make it a condition that 5 more spaces.
And approve the last.
And another condition that the remaining 3 variances will go to BZA.
Variances.
Any more discussion? We're all in favor, so we've got 4, 4.
The existing 3 that are listed here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, who was
at
it?
the parking
The
lot.
post?
maybe.
I want-
Okay.
Very good.
No?
Gonna move on to old business, or new, yeah, old business. Let's go.
No. What is that? No, not yet. Wait for these. Okay. Moving on to the PUD. Right?
Yes.
I have some handouts. So what you guys have in the, what I'm handing out, I should say, is that what you guys have here in the packet was line revisions based off of our previous conversations. And then I have legal revisions. Lindsay's on the call, but she can help us a little bit through this. The 2 different ones, one is like what it would look like finalized with legal revisions. The other one is the red line from Lindsay's legal revisions.
Can you hear me better? I moved my microphone up a little bit.
Talk a little louder, Lindsay.
That's what I was asking. Can you hear me better? I moved my microphone.
We'll just have to kind of repeat what you say, I think.
What about this? Does this help?
It's about the same.
I'm the only one in the office, so maybe if I shout, does that help?
That does help. That does help.
That works.
Okay, so. Might take us a second. Ow, paper cut. Okay. So. Oh. Yeah. All right, so. You can kind of see the difference here between. I'm sure you guys all had a moment to take a look at everything and look at the yellow revisions. So those were kind of the language that I made the adjustments based on our previous conversation. So we talked, about the height, and we just had a few different things to add. Really not a lot of revisions were made. Most of Lindsay's concern, if you look at the one with the red line that has the gray bar to the side. So a lot of this goes back to, so a lot of what we added was a lot of discretionary clauses that gave planning and zoning discretion.
A certain page.
Not right now.
Okay.
But really what we're gonna deeper dive into is the one that has the gray bar on the side. But, so a lot of the things that Lindsay revised, I don't believe she didn't take any of the integrity out of like what we were trying to accomplish. A lot of it was the language. No offense to Lindsay, but that's what what they're good at is the words and switching them around on us. So a lot of the things that we had added were things that said like at the discretion of planning and zoning, or planning and zoning has the ability to review, or planning and zoning has the ability to approve. And so her main gist of what she was trying to, how she was trying to improve the ordinance was that it goes back to planning and zoning is a recommending body. So you guys have everything that's in here, you have the ability to say, this will have an adverse effect on the surrounding neighborhood, but you can't deny it because of that. You have to recommend it to the Board of Aldermen for approval or denial. So that's where a lot of it looks like she really red marked her stuff, but a lot of it is just taking out that, the language differential between the fact that you guys, yes, you have the ability to say to the applicant that you think that this would have an adverse effect. And then the applicant has the ability to say, okay, we're going to withdraw our application, fix these things and come back to you. Or you guys could say, we do not recommend this, but it still has to go to the Board of Aldermen after. So you would be basically recommending it for denial because you feel like these things have fallen short. So a lot of it was just, we needed to take out some of the language where we said, you guys have the say so, you do have the say so, but you don't have the ability to approve it. That makes sense? Because you're a recommending body. So just like this preliminary plat, like, well, maybe it's not a good example because preliminaries don't go to the board, right? If this was a final plat, you would be recommending the final plat for approval to the Board of Aldermen. So what you're approving is, if it bounces to the Board of Aldermen next, you're approving it for your recommendation. You're recommending it to be approved by the Board of Aldermen or denied by the Board of Aldermen. So just, I want to say that caveat before we get too deep into the weeds of this. So let's just dive into the first item here on page 2 of the one with the gray bar. So this one is a little bit of that language. So I had in here that the concept plan and the PUD final plan must be approved by planning commission and the board of aldermen. That's not true. What's true would be that it would be, recommended by planning and zoning and approved by the board of aldermen. So we take that language out to clean it up a little bit. And same goes it for number 6 on that same page. So we said as deemed appropriate by the planning and zoning commission. You still have the ability to speak, just like tonight where you said, with the conditions of, you have the ability to say this are things that we don't like. But the applicant then has the ability to say, we're gonna take this, we're gonna withdraw this application and come back and fix some of the things you said. Or they can say, thank you for your consideration, we're gonna take it to the board of aldermen as is. So we took that one out of number 6 on page 2. A lot of this is gonna be that same thing. We use the word review and approve a little too frequently when you're recommending body. So on page 3, the what was removed there, is the same thing. So we said the planning and zoning commission shall review and approve location design, blah, blah, blah. So instead, we're saying the location design and type of open space shall be reviewed to ensure the open space aligns with the goals of the development and provides meaningful. So you're still reviewing it and you can still comment on it and you can say if it's good or bad. But then it's either gonna be withdrawn or continue on to board of aldermen. Same goes it for number 9. It was the same thing. So we said, we took the last line out of section 9 because the language was a little too, it said the commission can approve changes to road design, including narrower streets and right of way. If the plan keeps pedestrian, so what that line is saying is that you have the ability then to vary and kind of create your own city code, and we can't necessarily do that. So we just deleted that part, but it's the integrity of the section is still there. So it says, it reads as pedestrian paths should be kept separate from vehicle roads as much as possible. Pedestrian overpasses or underpasses near schools, playground, shopping, and other busy pedestrian areas may be required. So the integrity of what we were saying is still there. It's just more of a legality of how we say the approval portion of it. So 10 was one that we really got dug into at our last meeting where we talked about the height requirements for R1, R2, or if it's close to R1 or R2. And one of the requests that you had was that we put in that discretionary clause. And so then that same issue came about by adding that discretionary clause. But we still have the ability to, it's still saying the same thing, that the PUD district or no structures within a PUD district that is located adjacent to residential R1 or R2 zoning district shall exceed 1.5 or 3.5 stories or 45 feet tall, regardless of the proposed use. The Planning and Zoning Commission may require additional setbacks, screening, or transitional elements. But again, if there are requirements put on by the Planning and Zoning, the applicant can either withdraw, bring it back with those things fixed, or they can continue on to Board of Aldermen. But when it comes to you if they decided to continue on and just go to Board of Aldermen either way, Board of Aldermen's going to see it with your concerns, I guess. So they're gonna get it and it's gonna say Planning and Zoning. I don't know exactly how it would be worded or necessarily how it come, but Planning and Zoning Commission, made a comment on the height and in relation to the zoning and use or whatever. So they would still see all of your reviewed items, I guess.
Your recommendation.
Yeah. That one continues. So in evaluating height, it now reads in evaluating height, aesthetic design, architectural style, and potential adverse effects on surrounding properties may be considered, and height may be allowed or restricted according to achieve a cohesive and context-sensitive development. Are you guys comfortable with those revisions in 10? There's quite a few revisions there. And the one that I handed out without the gray bar on the side would be the kind of the final copy. If you need to read it without the red line, it would do that. And I'll just read it. So no structure within a PUD district that is located adjacent to a residential R1 or R2 zoning district shall exceed 3 1/2 stories or 45 feet in height, regardless of the proposed use. The Planning and Zoning Commission. Hold on. Yep, the Planning and Zoning Commission may require additional setbacks, screening, or transitional elements for taller structures to ensure compatibility with adjacent development. In evaluating height, aesthetic design, architectural style, and potential adverse effect on surrounding properties. In evaluating height, aesthetic design, architectural style, and potential adverse effects on surrounding properties may be considered, and height may be allowed or restricted accordingly to achieve a cohesive and context-sensitive development. Does that still read as what you all intended? And the intention was that, this is when we had the conversation about, you know, larger buildings being next to residential, but if, you know, an R3 came in along 40 highway, then it could be allowed. Or even a commercial PUD. Okay. So 11. So I added, when it referenced high-rise buildings, so I added the as defined as structures greater than 3 1/2 stories or 45 feet. One of the legal changes that were kind of made was it lists that yard setback, lot size, dwelling unit type, building height, frontage, and use restrictions may be modified from the standards typically required for the type of use proposed. So this one is kind of tied to 12 a little bit, because in 12, what we were trying to say was, we want you to quantify what you're varying by and a kind of an amount of what you're varying by in relation to how much open space you're providing. But in order to do that, you have to start somewhere, right? Even though this is its own district and it's not, you're not saying this is a district that's overlaying on top of an R3, for example. You have to be able to determine what you're varying from in order to say you need to provide X amount, even though there's not necessarily numbers, but for you all to be able to determine how much is being varied in order to say you need to provide more or less open space. So we added that, the line that says those restrictions may be modified from the standards typically required for the type of use proposed. So kind of like how on tonight's, they have the numbers listed on the left-hand side of their preliminary plat, where it says R3 and things like that, that they would list out what their, you know, lot sizes are, what their setbacks are, and then it'd be very clear to you all where this is coming, like how it's shrinking down, I guess. Comfortable with that? Continued on in 11. So again, we had an as approved by Planning and Zoning Commission. So again, you guys are not necessarily approving those items, but recommending them. the section below that, so double I, two I's. That one also had the same language. We really just put, instead of planning and zoning may require, we just had this, kept the same language and added may be required at the end. And then section 12, this is where we're also talking about that, kind of quantifying what's being reduced as opposed to what's being provided. So we just, again, took out some of the as determined by Planning and Zoning Commission. And then subject to approval by Planning and Zoning Commission. But again, it's not taking away your ability, because you're still able to comment on all of these things. And it will be documented and included. Okay. Moving on to 13, again, some more of that language change. Going to, okay, so this area talks a little bit about phasing. So we had quite a big discussion on phasing, and Lindsay can help a little bit with this conversation, but what we took out was the failure to complete the required elements of an approved phase may result in enforcement actions or withholding of subsequent phase approvals or permits at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So legally, there's a line that, you know, we can't really exceed beyond. So we're only allowed to, you know, enforce or stop anything disciplinary wise within what's within our own purview of our city code. So this one, we just needed to reel it back a little bit from what our original language was. So it just says each phase shall be completed in accordance with the PUD concept plan and in compliance with all city code provisions prior to initiation of the next phase.
Why was it necessary to take out the failure to complete the requirement elements of an approved phase? Does that say the same thing?
It's instead of saying like we will move forward with enforcement actions, it's saying that we can only move forward to the extent of our city code. It goes back to the discussion that we were having about you know, the completion of one phase and ensuring that they move to the next phase. Legally, it's still, there's still private companies, private developers. We don't have the ability to force their hand in any way to complete the project. And to an extent, we just don't have the ability to do so. And if that scenario were to happen, then we'll do everything we can within the extent of our legalities, but there's not, then you're going into more like building code issues or safety issues or code enforcement issues, but within zoning, it's just not the right place to address it. Can you hear me, Lindsay? Does that make sense?
Yes, that was a good explanation.
Okay. Okay. So the next section, the city shall bear no cost for infrastructure and improvements necessary to serve a PUD district. PUD concept plan shall not be approved unless adequate facilities such as water lines, sanitary sewer lines, and major streets exist in sufficient capacity to serve the development without overloading existing systems or creating undue traffic impacts on local residential streets. think that language still with the revisions, we just took out approval shall not be granted and changed it to PUD concept plan shall not be approved. That's just a language difference. It's saying the same thing still. We did add a section here at the end, though, that says if public facilities are included in the PUD, the facilities shall comply with all applicable city code and standards for public infrastructure. The city shall require a payment bond, performance bond, and maintenance bond in the amount equal to the value of the public infrastructure and public facilities to be constructed. The bonds shall be required prior to work beginning on the facilities. So legally, we don't have the ability to require payment bond and things like that beyond what they're doing with city infrastructure. So for the streets, the water, the sewer, etc., but we cannot do that for the entire project because of public versus private.
Can I go back to something on 13,
Sure.
on the double I?
Mhm.
Are we saying they have to have everything completely done on that first phase before they can start the second?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Well, I kind of read it like that too, like that, and I thought we had talked about.
Because as somebody who's done developments and things, when you're
That's
getting
fair.
close to finish, you wanna go ahead and start getting that infrastructure in for your next phase and, working on it so that as soon as you're done with that one, you can start.
Well, in the previous section, we say no phase shall be approved unless it contains a proportionate share of the required common open space, public improvements and infrastructure necessary to serve that phase independently or in conjunction with completed phases. Let me see what we had here before.
Okay, so 13 is just covering the infrastructure. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah. I think we did have discussion on that. I don't know that this is saying that anymore. I think that lost that component.
If I can add, Shauna,
Mm-hmm. Yep,
they have to be in compliance with city code, but if they have an open building permit on a building, that doesn't mean they're not in compliance with city code. They are in compliance because they're working and have an open building permit.
yeah,
So they have to complete it, they'd have to be in compliance with their current plan and be in compliance with city codes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have that previous plan completely completed.
well, and I think that's where our discussion was at our last meeting was. Can we ensure that they have X amount completed of phase one prior to moving on to phase two? And what we discussed was possibly the ability to have at minimum, the public infrastructure completed on the first phase before they move on to the second phase.
The other thing to think about is that I don't think we've said how they have to split phases. So
Yeah.
phase one could be all of the infrastructure, and then phase two is the vertical development. It doesn't necessarily have to be split between two different lots or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Approximate timing of the phases.
I'm thinking of this type of building and then we're gonna move on to this type of structure. Where she, I think, is now saying that it could be that phase one is just putting in your infrastructure and then the next phase is you're building up for
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
That's true. That is what she said.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like, there would be section one.
Yeah,
There would be
yeah.
extra, and then they'd start on section two streets.
yeah. townhomes are over here, and now we're gonna start on the apartment
Yeah.
buildings.
And it could be like that. That could be how they divide the phases.
Yeah, I think that what's important to consider is that every applicant may want to do things a little bit differently. So in reality, we're approving phases as they propose them. Because someone could want to do all infrastructure first, or they could want to do partial infrastructure, start buildings, then the next infrastructure, start buildings, and so on and so forth.
Or a way that if you just put it down there that like our recommendation would be like. We would prefer it to be like, you know, once you finish one phase or get close to finishing one phase, the infrastructure starts on the second before you start building. The second. But I think that's what.
Maybe the infrastructure was the first phase for
Yeah.
everything, so.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard.
I think
to break it up, because you don't know what they're gonna propose as the first or second phase.
But I think that's where we got hung up last time was we didn't want them to like come in and,
Start everything and finish nothing.
yeah, like, oh, they put in, you know, we wanted to make sure there was sewer and water and then it's like. They started streets, I'm just gonna, it's like, yeah, we're done, you know.
They're gonna have it in concept plan, is that correct?
no, the phasing. A phasing plan would come at the final. They would present it at the final. I personally, my opinion, I go back to, we just don't want to be too restrictive on, you know, if financially it doesn't make sense for them to do all the infrastructure first, because that's
Yeah.
a very expensive part of the project, so they might need the flow of it to allow for building first before they go to additional infrastructure. So I don't want to make it too restrictive in just this phasing section alone to where now they can't proceed with the project.
And that's the way I was reading this, like, you're not doing anything to get this done.
Yeah,
Is that not what it's saying?
I think because it's using, to me, I think we're using the word may, so it's like optional, but we want to make sure that you're providing us with a thorough plan that, or phase that makes sense.
We're not seeing.
Just in the first paragraph.
Oh.
But yeah, maybe that is too much of a request. Lindsay, what do you think? Do you think that the section is too restrictive on the phasing plan? Section 13.
I don't think so. If somebody has a concept plan that says, I'm going to put in half of the sewer in phase 1 and the other half of the sewer in phase 2, is that a problem, or do we want all of the sewer completed in a single phase?
I'm worried that it's saying you have to put in public infrastructure plus your open space plus your public improvement, or what else did it say? Because it says in a manner that the improvements, infrastructure, open space, and amenities for the phase are sufficient and stand alone. So I'm worried that it's saying that we're requiring too much of everything in each phase to where it would be more expensive or cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about is that the I'm not a tree hugger, but the green space, you know, we talked about that, but if you had a development, you had 3 different phases, well, what would keep them from, you know, just going to the second one or the third one and not doing anything with the green space?
Mhm.
You know, that's, you know, fulfill the obligations or, you know, of what was said before we moved to the next hurdle. I think that's what we were trying to get accomplished. Is
Do-
that
Lindsay,
correct?
do you think that this is saying that this is restricting too much? Or not?
Well, I want to take it just a step back for just a second. So let's just think of this as a subdivision, just a regular subdivision. There's no PUD. We approve a plat, they start putting roads in, they start putting sewer in, and they leave town and never build all those homes. That is always a risk that can happen. And that's the same kind of risk here. That is a risk that can happen.
So there's
I
not.
understand the concern of you built your 2 phases and not your open space. We could say that you are required to have your open space in phase 1. If they don't ever complete their concept plan, or I should say, if they don't complete their final plan, they don't complete their improvements, that final plan will lapse and no development will happen at that area until either a new plan is approved or the area is totally rezoned to a different zone and there's no need for a PUD. Does that, I don't think help any concerns, but does that help explain sort of the understanding behind the ordinance?
Yeah. So basically she's saying that we can't, there's not a way to write this to avoid failure to complete the project. There's not a way to write it to avoid that. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that wasn't my concern. My concern was just that we were telling him, you can't even start anything on part 2 until you've got this completely done.
I think we need to reel it back to just, you're allowed to propose a phasing plan and it needs to provide, as much detail as possible. But, we can't restrict what you're gonna do in phase 1 or what you're gonna do in phase 2. But they need to come to us with a clear and, concise phasing plan if that's a route that they're wanting to go.
And
Is that?
sorry, I was just gonna say, I understand the concern of a half completed development. I understand that, but like we were just talking about, there are separate codes to deal with that. This
Yeah.
is zoning plan, but there are also building codes, there are dangerous building codes, there are other nuisance issues. So this is plan development, not necessarily how do we get you if you are in violation of city code, other city codes.
Yeah. So can we just reel it back and just say that basically define what would be required, what you'd be required to provide to seek approval for a phasing plan? And just keep it as simple as that. Like, if you're gonna propose a phasing plan, these are the details we need to know in order to be able to approve it or not.
Right.
And then just see what we get. That'll
Wording like to meets all elements of like the PUD,
do what?
that like the phasing plan will just make sure that. Meets all the elements of the PUD and call it good.
Well, and we're just requesting that you tell us exactly what you're going to do in phase 1, phase 2, estimated time frame, that type of thing.
Now, because we're not gonna see it here. But you guys are at.
No, you'll see it at the final.
Rolling it,
You'll see it at the final. Oh, staff, you mean?
after the final, but.
Yeah.
And you got kind of have the. Or whatever.
Re- Obligation to require that they uphold that plan.
Right, so you can at least check it off to say that we've done this.
Okay, I think we'll clean that section up a little bit.
So are you saying that, that section 2 or the II?
13.
Okay. Yeah, 13 II. Even need it? Or is it?
I think it's a good clause to have in there, but it doesn't change how the phases would work or anything, or how we would approve it, really.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna make it more of like an administrative type of section and make it more so, this is what's required to propose a phasing plan. What we wanna see out of your phasing plan. Unless, you know, that subject to approval, that language in like, where it says, you know, no phase shall be approved unless it contains a proportionate amount of blah, blah, blah. Take out some of that language that's saying, if you don't, then you're not getting approved, and make it more just, you can propose a phasing plan, and if you do, here's what we would like to see in order to move forward with a recommendation.
That's a better way to do it.
Yeah. Pen. You have a pen? Okay. All right, 14. We started this one a little bit and we went back, so. The city shall bear no costs for infrastructure and improvements necessary to serve a PUD district. PUD concept plans shall not be approved unless adequate facilities such as water lines, sanitary sewer lines, and major streets exist in sufficient capacity to serve this development without overloading existing systems or creating undue traffic impacts on local residential streets. If such facilities do not currently exist or are insufficient, the applicant shall be responsible for installing or upgrading them at their own expense to ensure the PUD is properly served. All stormwater management facilities shall be designed by applicable city and state standards to prevent adverse impacts and on adjacent properties or public infrastructure. If public facilities are included in the PUD, the facilities shall comply with all applicable city code and standards for public infrastructure. The city shall require a payment bond, performance bond, and maintenance bond in the amount equal to the value of the public infrastructure and public facilities to be constructed. The bond shall be required prior to work beginning on the facilities. This is, we kind of talked about this one, but this is where we don't have the ability to provide any of those financial kind of securities, if you will, on anything but what would be public infrastructure. And that's just saying that basically if you fail to complete the public infrastructure components of this, the payment bond would then pay out and we could have it completed outside of that original applicant. So we didn't talk about this one at our last discussion. We did talk about it, but reverted back a little bit on this one. So it says in no case shall a PD district be less than 2 acres in size. And I took out or no less than 5 acres in size if commercial or industrial uses are included. So I was just trying to kind of come up with examples of properties in Odessa that could be an area where a PD could be applicable, but are less than five acres, and those do exist in town. So I didn't want to restrict us from being able to use this on some of our kind of prime commercial real estate, like along 40 Highway and things like that, or even along 2nd Street. So I did feel like the 5 acres could be too restrictive. And the prime example of where I consider this would be on 40 Highway next to BP Gas in front of Lake Veneta. That's like 4 some odd acres, 4.42 acres or something. But it's kind of, that's a prime commercial lot in reality, and you wouldn't be able to use a PUD with that language. Does have any objections to that?
I remember us talking about that at the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're all good with it.
Okay, so it would so the 2 acres would be the only minimum requirement overall,
Could
period.
we lower that? Do you think, is there a time that you could see that, like a 1 acre being necessary for this?
No. a fast food place or something that.
Yeah, but I don't think that a fast food place, they should be able to just use our existing city code process. So it would just be zoned commercially and they would abide by the commercial zoning requirements that we have today.
And that,
Yeah, within what's in our city code, so whatever we have in there for setbacks and things like that would still hold true.
they had to have a variance. That's what we have now, right? So
Yeah.
they have a variance on that.
They could still go through that same process and have a BZA. I mean, the city's not gonna want to seek out open space from Taco John's, you know? I mean, that'd be cool if there was a park at Taco John's, but.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next section, 50-556 planned unit development review. So this is what's required for. This is what is required for the applications when they submit. So we obviously have our filing fee, legal description, blah, 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 all those things. Nothing's changed there. On number 9, staff were kind of looking at this, so it said proposed lot lines and plot designs or plot plans are required. Is what this section's saying. But then it's saying in industrial and commercial portions of the PUD, the final lot lines and plot plan requirements may be waived. So our concern from staff's perspective was what's the difference? Why is it allowed to be waived for industrial and commercial, but not anything else? So with the idea behind the fact that the PUD is to be flexible, we felt like that right should be equally dispersed through any type of zone or use.
So we're getting a change.
I'm taking out where it says industrial and commercial portions. So prior to it, so this is section 9
Right,
on
but
page.
it's that on both times.
Oh. No, so I'm deleting the strike through of the words industrial and commercial portion. So instead it'll just read in a PUD district, the final lot lines and plot plan requirements may be waived. It's on page 7. That sound okay? Okay. All right, moving into page 8. The last line there, so this is just a language thing, proposed timeline and if applicable, phasing plan for development. For the development. Would be a requirement. Only if applicable. Okay, moving on to page 9, section 3 under procedure. Letters I. So this goes back to the board, the Planning and Zoning Commission being a recommended body. This is just clearly kind of stating that and shoring it up so it's in the PUD. It's very clear moving forward that this body is recommending to the Board of Aldermen for approval or denial. So the way it reads is upon receipt of the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, the Board of Aldermen shall review and consider the application. The Board of Aldermen may approve, deny, or approve the application with conditions. The Board of Aldermen may alternatively remand the application to the Planning and Zoning Commission for further review. So that's kind of an extra step. You guys are able to recommend it for approval or denial. But you all are, but once it goes to the board, they can actually kick it back to you guys one more time for another round of review if necessary.
So you really didn't change nothing there.
It added that last sentence for the remand. So the Board of Aldermen may alternatively remand the application to the Planning and Zoning Commission for further review.
The other,
So these are the same.
right.
This is the final one with legal's revisions.
So,
Yeah, because we added it. If we subtracted it, it wouldn't have been in this one. Okay. So page 10. The proposed stormwater management plan adequately addresses both stormwater quantity and quality in relation to the PUD and adjacent properties, and complies with applicable stormwater ordinances. So this was kind of legal language revision there because we didn't want to using the word protects adjacent properties was kind of a liability issue there. So we changed the language to remove that word protects. And then lastly here, we added the section that says withdraw. So an applicant may withdraw an application for a PUD concept plan at any time.
Is there something? The one you guys get from the one that we had.
Yeah, this is the legal revision.
That's why it's not.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Does anyone else need one? Sorry. This is the final one that's not that.
Oh.
With legal changes.
Thank you.
This is the final one not that. Okay. So page 10, we added withdrawal. So this goes back to, you guys can make your comments. If there's a lot of those comments, the applicant then has the ability to withdraw, fix them and come back, or they can withdraw in total. We just needed to be able to give them that opportunity to take a step back if they want to. On page 11, under procedure, for the final plan review, says upon receipt of a completed application, the community development coordinator or their designee shall review the application for compliance with this chapter and the PUD concept plan. So again, we just wanted to make sure we're tying that final back to the concept. And it gives us the ability to kind of make those comparisons in that kind of window before it comes to you guys. So that the final plan will come to us. Staff can kind of make their total review. And then the community development coordinator, Christy, will place the application on Planning and Zoning Commission's agenda within 60 days of verification of an application in compliance with this chapter, as long as such placement on the agenda allows for adequate public notice. So we talked about that one a little bit at our last one. It's just adding that we're not just going to make sure that it complies with the chapter, but also complies with what was previously submitted on the concept. All right, page 12. So again, this is all referencing the final plan. So we have this effective approval, lapse of approval, approval of the PUD final plan shall constitute a rezoning and shall confer upon the applicant the right to develop the subject property in accordance with the approved PUD final plan. The right to develop in accordance with an approved PUD final plan shall lapse and be of no further effect if all development shown on the PUD final plan is not completed within the time frame, including the timeline for phases. So we're just adding. They propose a timeline to you overall, and if they're doing phasing, they're gonna propose a phasing timeline. So both of those things need to be in compliance with. And then again, the ability for them to withdraw the final plan at any time that they see fit. So last time we added the section about major modifications, that some modifications could be amended administratively. Major modifications would need to come back to the Planning and Zoning Board of Aldermen. So Lindsay added major amendments also include modifications relating to changes to the number or order of phases, timelines, or scope of requirements and required improvements, or scope of required improvements. So again, referencing back to the phasing and the timelines to solidify those. And then this one is the one, so we talked about phasing just ever so slightly earlier. And then we have a section at the end for phasing of the development. So this is where my brain has been working the most overtime, is this section. So let me just read how we have it written currently. And just tell me if you like it or not. So for PUDs, and now I'm concerned that since we made the changes earlier, that might make changes here, but we'll see. Okay, so phasing of development. For PUDs proposed to be developed in phases, the applicant shall submit a detailed phasing plan as part of the PUD concept plan application and the PUD final. See, that conflicts now, doesn't it? Because didn't we say earlier that it's just the final? Okay, I'll come back to that. For PUDs proposed to be developed in phases, the applicant shall submit a detailed phasing plan as a part of the PUD concept plan application and the PUD final plan application. The plan shall include the reasons for requesting phasing, a timeline, the scope of improvements for each phase, and an explanation of how each phase will function both independently and in conjunction with other phases. The phasing plan shall be reviewed based on the adequacy of proposed sequencing, public infrastructure delivery, and overall coordination with the city's development goals. Each approved phase must be constructed in accordance with the final approved plans and completed within the timeline set forth in the phasing schedule. Completion of infrastructure prior to the next phase. So this is where I added, when we had the discussion about they need to do all the public infrastructure first, this is where I added that. So now I think we need to delete it again. All public infrastructure improvements to be dedicated to the city, including roads, water, sewer, and stormwater, must fully be constructed and accepted by the city prior to the commencement of construction on any subsequent phases. Exceptions may be considered only when necessary for construction sequencing and only if sufficient financial guarantees are provided. So, Lindsay, can you help me understand how this section is different from the previous section that we talked about when that reference phasing? Section 13.
And I'm scrolling up to that section, and I don't think it is that different.
Can we delete 13 and just move forward with this one and take out the last section? Because I think that's saying what we were saying earlier, where if you're gonna do phasing, you need to tell us what your game plan is, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's no need to repeat it. It could be either in this section on phasing, and I actually kind of wonder, like you mentioned, Shauna, if this phasing section could be kind of redistributed through the rest of the ordinance, maybe now after review. But you just, either way, they have to complete their public infrastructure and they have to have that sufficient financial bonding for the infrastructure.
For the public infrastructure only. What do you guys think or see as issues here? We clearly have it duplicative in two places, and it's not how we want it to be presented.
All three,
Mm-hmm,
we're saying it has to be completed within the timeline set.
mm-hmm.
I thought we kind of told them to do that.
Yeah, that's where, I mean, it's in two places, so it conflicts with each other, those two areas.
Yeah.
I personally think that sections 1, 2, and 3 are what we need of page 12 and page 13.
And Shauna, I think this might be what could just be the administrative part, like you were saying
Yeah,
above. Yeah.
can we delete the section 13 on page 5? I think so.
So they're just a little bit different. This section is more saying that infrastructure has to be fully constructed before the next phase. The other section, section 13, is saying that if you have public infrastructure, whether it's in two different phases or just the one plan, you have to have bonding.
I think we remove number 4 though on page 13 after the discussion we've had tonight,
Yeah.
that we don't want to require all infrastructure up front.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think it makes sense to have the infrastructure done for the phase you're working on before you
Yeah.
start the construction going up, maybe,
Yeah.
but I don't think
I agree.
otherwise for like the whole development.
I agree. I think page 5 should be deleted, the section 13 on page 5. And then the paragraph on section 4.
Yes, I agree with that.
So delete all of section 13 on page 5. And delete paragraph 4 on page 13. So really, it just turns into the administrative discussion that we had, where it just reads that if you are going to do phases, it does require it to be done, to be notified at the concept and the final. And then we're asking them to provide an explanation of the reason, which that's one of the things we added last time. The reason for requesting the phasing, the timeline, scope of improvements for each phase, and an explanation of how each phase will function both independently and in conjunction with other phases. So we're not stipulating you have to do this, then that, then this. We're just saying you have to tell us that you're going to do this, then that, then this. And it has to make sense.
My only- I was gonna say, my other question about deleting 4 is the language that comes after about dedicating to the city. Do we have that anywhere else?
Well, it's not saying that it has to be dedicated to the city. It's just saying that the infrastructure that would be dedicated to the city needs to be completed. So if you're going to have any public infrastructure, any public infrastructure, no matter what, based on our code, would have to be dedicated. So with
Make sure that we have something
yeah.
somewhere.
With the,
As they're doing these things, you're gonna be inspecting and making
Yeah.
sure everything's up to code anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
but any public, if someone wanted to build a private street, then that's their kind of prerogative, but anything that's going to be public infrastructure has to be dedicated over legally and on paper and whatnot. It goes in front of the Board of Aldermen. So I don't think that that would hurt anything to not have that language. Okay?
Or, yeah.
Where we are right now is this one. Plus, really, there's only one change. It's the phasing change. There's two changes. No, there's just one change. It's the phasing, changing deleting the 13, deleting 4. Yeah. Those are the only two changes that, unless I missed something.
So. What would you like to see?
Well, technically, I would, my opinion, my preference, I would like to see it approved tonight. What should happen though, technically speaking, is that it needs to be approved at our next meeting with a public hearing. Because we've technically done a public hearing on this, but it was in April. So to
And then
be
after it's approved, then we send it. back
to the
city
Board of
council,
Aldermen, yes,
to the alderman.
yes. So I would really love for it to be approved tonight. But I do think that the right thing to do is to have another public hearing. Because we've made so many changes. Are you in agreement with that, Lindsay?
Yes.
I think we're all, not, what.
Yeah, any further discussion or thoughts or just what's on your mind?
I'm ready for it to go back to Alderman.
I don't wanna wait that far, but
Take copies of this one, okay? I mean.
how many versions?
copies.
How many versions? Quite a bit.
There's been a lot done on this since the last time it was sent to. We're all,
Yeah.
we don't want to send it back.
That's true. That would be very
We
deflating.
did address most of their concerns.
I think we addressed all of their concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so no vote is necessary tonight. We'll bring it back at our next meeting as a public hearing. And we'll do public notice and all of that over the next few weeks. Okay?
Good.
Alright.
Any staff reports?
We were gonna do, I just wanted to do a quick zoning conversation as opposed to our zoning workshops that we've been holding. Mostly because of time, and two, we're kind of in a weird place right now with the zoning work that we've already done because half of you guys weren't there for the whole process. So I don't want us to lose sight of the work that we've done, but I also understand that we need to get everyone back on the same page, and we put a lot of work into getting everyone on the same page and same direction when it came to our zoning changes that we were working on. So we do need to continue our zoning workshops. I think since you three are here that are new, I'll just explain where we've been and how we got to where we are. So we had a training, right? Did we have Lopper come in and do a training, or did we not do that this time? We didn't? Oh. So the way our zoning currently works is that it kind of builds upon itself. And, meaning that if you have a commercially zoned lot and it's completely vacant, you're able to build anything from R1 to whatever commercial zone that you have. So, the purpose behind the zones is that if you have a commercial lot, there's regulations or commercial use that you're trying to build. There's regulations and zoning requirements per that type of use. And there's requirements per residential types of use and so on and so forth. So when you blur those lines, there's some negatives that can come about from that. One of the largest things, if Marty was here, he could ad lib a little bit, but one of the largest things that really came kind of bubbled to the surface and we had a realization in what was really happening here was that, you know, we have currently today X amount of commercial property. And a lot of that commercial property that we have, residential or multifamily, is being built on that commercially zoned property, which is causing up the amount of commercially zoned property that we have to dwindle. And one thing that I personally think is that Odessa doesn't have, not even talking about zones and what their or lots are and what they're zoned at, but just the amount of commercial businesses that we have is not very high in comparison to maybe some of our neighbors. And so really commercial and industrial property is something that we are striving towards growing. And the way our zoning is structured, it makes it a little bit difficult to do that. It also makes the jobs that we do internally as staff, it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to be able to, and planning and zoning, you guys exist so you can kind of vet these things and make sure that things are being done in a way that makes the most sense. Well, a lot of times whenever someone's trying to build residential on a commercial lot, there's no, it's just, they don't have to come before you at all. Because there's no need for them to rezone, because they're able to do not just residential on this lot, but you're able to do any of these things on this lot. So it kind of makes the options for them endless, which can be seen as a pro to some people and a con to some people. And it's kind of weighing what we've done in the past zoning meetings is kind of weigh those pros and cons to determine what makes sense for Odessa, and is, you know, what Marty likes to say, you know, is it right for Odessa? So we've done a lot to build to where we are today, but we still have a long way to go. One of the things that we were proposing to do, you know, we put the flip chart paper up on the wall and we put R1, R2, R3, and then we took the different uses from other cities because our uses are not the most well-defined, but we took different uses like, you know, senior living or like, you know, multifamily or cemeteries, literally any of the uses. And we just started kind of mapping them out and saying, okay, it makes sense for a cemetery to be in any of these areas, or it makes sense for a multifamily housing unit with greater than X amount of houses or units. It makes sense for those to be in R3, but there could be a scenario where it does make sense for them to be in C1. So we kind of just tack those up to what made sense. And then what we were working towards was what's called a use table. And it has all of those different uses listed, and then it has all the different zones listed, and it's a matrix system where lists the use, and then it has a checkbox under each zone that use is allowed to be in. So as opposed to the way our structure is written, where it kind of builds upon itself and the pots just kind of get bigger and bigger, and what's allowed to happen gets bigger and bigger. This is a little bit more defined, where this is what you want to do. Well, you can do that in this one, or this one. So it doesn't, to me, it makes it it gives you guys the ability to decide if you want to make it a more restrictive use, or if it's a use that could be something that's a little bit more open. You just put it in the different buckets at that point. But it gives us the ability to look at each of those uses and say what makes sense, as opposed to can it just drop into the next bucket? Does that make sense? Okay. So all I'm saying is that I don't want to lose sight of what we've done so far, but I want to make sure that we continue to work on it, but I also don't want you guys to feel like, you know, others are 10 steps ahead of you. So, all this to say, I want to continue working on the initiative that we started. We're also entering kind of another era of development for Odessa. We have a lot more larger scale projects, a lot of single family developments that have happened, that are in the process of happening, and that are coming down the pipeline. And quite frankly, I think that there's a lot of the zoning ordinance alone is something that really needs to be taken a look at and needs to be improved upon. And whatever that improvement looks like, it needs to be improved upon. But there are other ordinances too that need to come before you guys. You know, at our last meeting, I mentioned numerous different areas of our code that I felt like were lacking. I would like to bring those to you guys, and we start. I hope that it maybe the PUD is a little different because it was a brand new ordinance and it was something that we were really starting from scratch on and bringing completely new to Odessa. But there are some simpler ordinances that I do think for the benefit of our development climate overall in Odessa, we need to be able to make these improvements to our ordinances so we don't damage our business in the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like the commercial, losing commercial, that's damaging to our future. Allowing certain things to go through without the proper requirements through the development process, those are damaging to our future. Looking at things like sidewalks, curb and gutter, the quality of the street materials that are used when building our streets. So we don't have, we have a lot of streets to maintain, and we are trying everything that we can to maintain those streets. But if a new street's being built, we need to make sure that it's built to a quality that's not going to just add to our problems that we have. So those are the types of things I want to bring to you guys. I want to prioritize zoning first, but I also think that there are some smaller ordinances that maybe need to be looked at simultaneously. So all this to say, I'd like to, with your help, make these improvements and bring them in front of you. Okay. That's my speech for the night.
Yeah.
Okay. We got this.
We just feel like one tonight, every meeting, just start throwing them in.
Yeah, maybe even two.
I mean, let's go big and go 3. So we can get through, and if not, we'll move to the next one.
Any other questions from any of you? For again, then, just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? Not one favor.
Thank you.